Welcome back to Market Index. Today, very pleased to be joined by Keith Coughlan, CEO of European Metals Holdings. Welcome.
Thanks, Nisha.
For the listeners not familiar with European Metal Holdings, can you provide a little background on the company for us?
So European Metals is developing the Cinovec project, which is the largest hard rock lithium resource in Europe. It's a very, very big deposit, over 7.4 million tonnes of lithium carbonate equivalent. It's in the Czech Republic, on that country's border with Germany. We will be in production in 2024 at the right time for Europe as the increase in demand for electric vehicles in that part of the world kicks up significantly.
European Metals' primary activity is the development of lithium and tin project in the Czech Republic. With lithium prices at an all-time high, where do you see the price going from here?
Well, you're right. They are at an all-time high, and that's because of the supply-demand equation that we're seeing globally. And obviously, the demand for lithium is coming from the battery industry, which in turn, the demand there is coming from the electric vehicle industry. And if we look at the forecast rates of production of electric vehicles into the future, there's no decrease. In fact, there's a significant increase in the forecast numbers of electric vehicles that are going to be produced globally, particularly in Europe and the EU. And so for that reason, the demand for lithium is not going to drop anytime soon. The metal's in deficit, that is the demand is greater than the supply, and I think it'll remain in deficit for some years yet. Sure, these high prices will bring on more production, but it takes time. And none of the production forecasts mean that the metal is going to go out of deficit anytime soon. So I see continued high prices. We're seeing very high prices if you look at what we call spot. The spot prices primarily in China. It's important to understand that a lot of the large volume long-term contracts for lithium products, lithium chemicals, are actually set at prices a little lower than that. But they're still very high prices relative to where the metal has been historically.
With electrical vehicles becoming increasingly popular, can you ever foresee a situation where the lithium price could fall back down to last year's levels?
I can't personally see that. As I say, more supply will come on, but it's a matter of how quickly that can come on and whether it can keep pace with the increase in demand for electric vehicles. There's no indication that that's the case currently. So we may certainly see the lithium price stabilise a little, even ease a little from these very high spot prices, but I can't see a time anytime soon where we're going to see it back to the prices we saw last year.
Mining for battery metals has a bit of a bad reputation amongst environmentalists, and this creates an interesting dilemma. Europe wants to reduce its CO2 emissions, but in order to achieve this, they need to increase mining for battery metals. What are the lithium companies doing to improve their ESG standing?
Well, I think it's fair to say that all mining, is being focused on by environmental groups, and really that's only the tip of the iceberg. The whole industry is very, very focused now on the ESG, environmental social governance credentials of every mining project everywhere in the world. And you mentioned in Europe, it is true. Europe is pushing very hard to reduce CO2 emissions. But it's, the world understands that it's no longer viable to simply buy metals from other parts of the world. It's no longer viable to just move the perceived problem to Africa, for example. It's still the same issue. It is a global issue, not a regional issue. And that's part of the reason why we're moving, away from fossil fuels, moving towards green energy. But, there's a transition period, there's no doubt. And we do have to mine to produce these metals to enable that transition. So you're right, there is a dilemma. What's happening to counter that is that there's a very, very strong focus on ESG globally, on all of the yardsticks that all companies are measured by, not just the mining companies, but the companies producing the batteries and the companies producing the electric vehicles. We at European Metals and the Cinovec project were very fortunate. We are re-entering a historic underground mine, so that has a significantly lower impact on the environment, on the community, the immediate community in the vicinity, because we're not looking to break new ground. We're not looking to dig a big open pit. So we have an advantage from that point of view. We also have an advantage in that our project is very close to the end users, so we don't have to transport material great distances. A lot of lithium that goes to Europe now comes 2/3 of the way around the world from Australia. Obviously we're not going to have that sort of issue. So the world is addressing the issues of environmental impact, the CO2 footprint, the use of water, the acidification of projects and processes. Happily, our credentials in all of those respects are very good, but the world will come to a balance, I believe, on enabling these projects to get into production whilst ensuring that the ESG impact is as low as possible.
Keith, what's the 6-month pipeline looking like for European Metals Group?
So in terms of our news flow, I usually break this into 2 categories. Firstly, we have our definitive feasibility study running, which will conclude later this year. And so from time to time, we'll have updates about how that process is tracking, various test work that we'll do, lock cycle test work, pilot plant work, etc. But above and beyond that, it's the strategic and corporate sort of activities that we're embarking on. Our key plan, we need to get this project funded and have that funding equation sorted by the end of the year. So that involves discussions with European banks, with European grant schemes, but also with off-takers. For a lithium project, in order to get funded, you need to have bankable offtake. As the market has moved in our favour the last 6 to 12 months, those offtake discussions are improving, and it's a key area for us over the next 6 months as well.
Keith Coughlan, CEO of European Metals Group, thank you for joining us on Market Index. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.